Hey everybody, it's Madison. I'm back with another Halloween video. This one is inspired by The Nightmare Before Christmas, so let's get started with that. Initially, I had started with a small Slimline rectangle cut out of Bristol Smooth. I also cut out a few other rectangles out of some spare purple cardstock at varying heights for my hills, and I used the stitched hill dies for that. I also cut out a little spooky fence using the spooky fence die. This one hill though, I didn't use a hill topper. For the classic curved hill from the movie, I decided to freehand it. So I used an X-Acto knife and some scissors to cut out a design I'd sketched out of the paper. Because there was no really good die for this, so I just figured the best way for me to get the design that I wanted was to freehand it, and I think it turned out pretty good. So, if you're doing the same thing, just be careful with the X-Acto knife. They can be sharp. Use a non-slip mat. And I also used a sanding eraser to kind of, fix my imperfections with my cutting. So, next with all of my purple hill pieces, I had took some shaded lilac on the two lighter purples. The two top hills are cut out of a lighter purple cardstock. The bottom one is a darker one. There was no rhyme or reason to this. It was just me making use of the scraps that I had. So feel free to use whatever colors you want for your hills, obviously, but I thought purple looked the best. So I am adding shaded lilac to the tops because I will have a moon and I feel like it'll look like moonlight. And then I'm adding black soot near the bottom of the hill just to add some shading and some contrast, really add some dimension to these hills. One thing to note about the card was the character designs that I have on it for Jack and Sally, as well as Little Zero. They're not my own original ideas, like I didn't think of masking and doing this sort of creation. They came from @popsiclesticks on Instagram. I will have her page linked down below, so feel free to check that out and support her as well. She's really talented, but I felt like I'd note that. However, the Oogie Boogie design I did do myself, and I am very proud of that. So here I am taking a knitting needle and I'm adding these lines to all of my hill pieces, just kind of following the contours of the hill to add more dimension. I'm trying to really recreate the feel that movie had, and the movie did have these kind of embossed lines on their hills because it was a claymation movie. So and so here is kind of what that effect gives. It's very subtle, looks really cool. So next I took circle dies and I just found one that fit my sky accordingly, and I'm just working my way from outside in using the lightest shade, which is Squeezed Lemonade, and then going darker, which is Mustard Seed and Fossilized Amber inks. Once that's all blended, I am splattering using some clean water. And I'm also using my Gansai Tambi Starry Night watercolors because they're so pretty. So I'm using a gold shade for my moon as well. And now I am just checking to see where my moon is going to be on my card in relation to my hills. And I'm just marking that down. When I did my sky, I wanted to have kind of a halo effect around my moon, like it's really glowing. So I'm using some tumbled glass around where my moon will be. And I'm blending that out to a blueprint sketch and then chip sapphire. And I believe I might even take black soot around the edges just to make it look more like a night sky. But that's the general idea. The transition from tumbled glass to blueprint sketch is a little harsh because they are two very different colors. But if you go back and forth enough, they will blend and it'll look fine. So. So with my sky blended, I took the same circle die and cut out some typing paper and taped that to my card temporarily, and then adding splatter with some black soot and chipped sapphire inks just because it looks more interesting in my opinion. So then I took the party animal stamp set, and I'm using this little bear, and I will be masking it off with some of the all over stick post-it notes, and then using this masking technique I will be able to build my characters. So the bear will turn into Mr. Oogie Boogie. You don't obviously have to have this character for the card. I think he's a good addition. He's one of my favorite characters from the movie. He's got the best song, one of the best songs in my opinion, in the soundtrack. So I thought he would be just so much fun to add. You gotta have him, he's so cool. So I stamped it out, and then I just kind of drew his face, the upper half of his body, with a pencil using reference images, and then I went over it with a fine line Sharpie marker, and then I am adding color with my copics. So if you're going to do what I do later on in the card, which is cover him with a glow-in-the-dark embossing powder, I wouldn't put too much effort into coloring him, just kind of get down the basic flat washes of color, because the embossing powder kind of adds a tint, or it kind of mutes the colors a little bit. So just a note for you not to waste all your time coloring him. But if you're not going to do so, definitely add some dimension, make him look really cool. It's up to you. Right, so to finish off Mr. Boogie, I am taking this Fawn embossing pen and I am coloring the entirety of the image with it, and I will be coating him with a WOW glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. To get the best effect with it, you will want to do multiple coats, so applying the embossing powder, heating it up, and doing another layer. I did 3 layers for my image, and then you can charge him under the light, and then he glows. It's so cool, just like in the movie. So for Jack Skellington, I am taking this mummy stamp set from the costume party stamp from Fawn, and I am masking off almost the entirety of this image. I'm masking off the face. I'm just wanting the outline of the head and the body. I'm also masking off like the little toilet paper coming off of him and all the lines on the inside. This one took the most masking. It was ridiculous. So I'm adding my masks, inking it up, removing them, and then stamping my image. You don't want to leave the masks on when stamping, because then you'll just get ink everywhere. So just a recommendation, don't do that. So I'm stamping him, then once again using my pencil to kind of sketch out my design, going over it with a Sharpie pen, and coloring him with my copics. So yeah, this design was from Popsicle Sticks. I kind of just tried my best to emulate what she had done. So I am, for the most part, I'm just using N7, N9, and N5 because pretty much everything he wears is black except for his head and arms because he's a skeleton. So it's very easy coloring for Mr. Jack Skellington. The hardest part is just making sure you still leave all the details. So just trying to keep that in mind. But I think with all the work that does go into making this card, with all the masking and stuff, it was just absolutely worth it. Hands down, it is one of my favorite cards I think I've ever made. Even just in general, before making this channel, it's just so good. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a great seasonal film, like it's so perfect. The soundtrack for this movie is also just fantastic. So I think that's probably why I like this card so much, but it's going to be hard to want to give this one away because I love it so much. For Sally, I'm using the witch element from the costume party stamp. I am masking off her facial features. I am not masking off like the lower part, like the outline of her chin, just because it'll make drawing her face easier later. I also masked off her feet, but I really wouldn't do that. It's pointless. So her feet look fine. The dress is perfect for her character because it just really fits that ragdoll look she has going on. So I thought it was so freaking cute when I saw it on Instagram. I just had to try making it for myself. So I'm coloring it with my Copics again. I used my pencil and stuff to sketch, and then I used my Sharpie ultrafine marker. If you have other fine liners, those would work great too. The Sharpie was the only thing I had, but I mean, if you got like a Copic outliner or multi-liner, that will probably work the best. So for Sally's dress, I don't really show the colors that I'm using, so I'm sorry, but it's also not like a huge deal. I just kind of picked random colors I thought would look the best for her dress in reference to kind of the images from the movie. So I just picked a whole bunch of random ones that I thought kind of worked and just colored her dress accordingly. It really has no rhyme or reason. I also took this blue pen and added some stitching detail to her face and to her legs and such to make her look like she is stitched together. So for Zero, I am taking this dog image from the Friends Forever stamp that Lawn Fawn had released with Simon Says Stamp a while ago. I don't think you can buy it anymore, but I know Lawn Fawn has other dog images you could use if you really want to make Zero. So once again, I partially stamped his face and then just kind of sketched out the rest of his body and colored him with Copics, and he turns out really cool as well. To finish off this card, I'm adding some pumpkins because it wouldn't be Halloween without pumpkins. So I'm using the Pick at the Patch stamp, and I'm just using these pumpkin images. It's an older stamp set, so I'm kind of glad I was able to use it again. And all the images with Lawn Fawn are just so nice in that you can kind of always mix and match them together, and they always really work. So I liked this one because I had a mixture of bigger and smaller pumpkins. So I just used the same oranges for all of them and some browns for the stems, and I've hand cut everything because all my images were custom, so I didn't have dies. And I didn't have the dies for the stamp set, so I had to fussy cut everything, but it worked, so it's fine. And so here I am assembling the majority of my card. I am gluing my moon down first, using my hill as a reference as to where I should probably place it and where it'll look the best. And then I'm gluing down my hill. For gluing everything down, I'm using my ATG gun for all these big pieces. With my card kind of assembled, I am just laying out my scene, so I'm kind of going for the end of the movie here when they're singing on the hill to each other. I don't have snow in this card, but it's fine. So I have Jack and Sally at the top in the moonlight, very cute, very nice, and I am just kind of playing around with what I want my pumpkins to look like and stuff. I'm really happy with the way my layout turned out. I feel like the way I had laid the pumpkins behind each other, overlapping and stuff, and behind these hills, it looks really three-dimensional. So there's that. I also didn't really feel like Oogie Boogie fit, which is kind of sad because I spent so much time on him, but I put him on the inside. He looks really cool. One thing I think I forgot to mention was, for the majority of gluing down these pieces, I am using my Fawn liquid glue pen, some ATG gun, and as well as these black foam squares, just to add some dimension near the front. I'm trying to keep it flat near the top of the card, and then I'm propping up things in the front to give more of an illusion of 3 dimensions. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to comment down below. I'm more than happy to help. And if you just didn't catch any products I used, it's always listed in the description. So feel free to check that out and just, don't be afraid to comment and ask questions. It's all good. I'm here to help y'all. So here I am gluing Jack and Sally, I believe with the ATG gun, just because I wanted them to stick really well. I also added some shading underneath their feet with a violet copic marker to really ground them on the card as well. And I feel like that really works. They're not just floating in space. So I am taking this larger Fawn Slimline die, and I'm cutting out this piece of striped cardstock that I had gotten from Micheals. It's from those paper sections, and it's like 99 cents for a piece of paper. So I cut that out because the stripes are very fitting for a Tim Burton movie, and I'm just applying that to my card base. And then for the final step in the assembly of this card, I am mounting my piece here, my smaller piece, to my card base with some foam tape. This foam tape is from the dollar store because it was really cheap and it works just fine. So yeah, I'm just trying my best to get that as lined up as possible, and that'll be kind of it for the majority of this card. And I decided to decorate the inside of this card as well. So I am placing Mr. Oogie Boogie himself on the inside with my ATG gun. And here I am just kind of adding detail to all my images, once again with my Jelly Roll pens. I'm using 0.10 white, I'm using a clear shimmer and a black glaze, and I'm just kind of going over all my images, fixing any imperfections with the white pen, and adding lots of detail and shine with the shimmer. And I use the black gel pen for eyes, and yeah, it looks pretty cool. Next, I am taking this banner that I had cut out with a Fawn die and just shortened it, and I'm stamping a sentiment from the Pick of the Patch stamp set using a carrot ink, and I'm also adding another sentiment from the same stamp set on the inside using a Yeti pigment ink, just so it'll really show up on the black cardstock. And I also added a message on the inside that says, "This image glows in the dark," just so the recipient knows that Mr. Oogie Boogie glows and it doesn't go wasted. So here is everything finished. If you would want, please like, comment, share, subscribe. It all means so much to the channel. I also have an Instagram down below if you want to follow me to keep track. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.